Alright guys, welcome to another video. In this video, I want to take you what's like next step after my last video of how to install Tailwind CSS. Now you've gotten Tailwind CSS running, how do you make it work? So in this video, of course I already have some projects going on right here. I'm not going to teach you how to do all of these yet because I'm assuming you're a beginner. So I'm looking for small ways to, increment that knowledge. So today I thought, well, how about learning how to make a very simple thing like a button, right? And that way, hopefully we'll be able to see how content on web pages are structured, what comes first, how do we style them, and all of that. So with this simple tutorial, you should be able to know how to create a button, and then you should see a couple of things in between the lines, things I didn't say. Of course, you're not going to be able to create this one just yet, but soon enough I'll do a video that shows you is basically how to do this. Now, this page is divided into a couple of sections, right? And all of the sections, let me show you from there. So this, from post crafts all the way to here, is a section. From blackjack all the way to here is a section. This white space here is another section. This is another section. This whole dub here is another section. And then this one here is another section. So if you look at it, how many sections we have? We have 1, 2 section, 3 section, 4, 5, and 6 sections. Now, all of those sections are controlled from the app section of here, app.js. So that's where all of those sections are coming from. So we have footer, we have cards, newsletter, analytics, hero, nav bar, and off. So the reason you have 7 here is because the nav bar is a different section and it's controlled by this line over here. So technically we have 7 sections. This nav bar and this is 2. So right inside of blackjack, all the way from blackjack, this line all the way here is 2 sections. So the nav bar is just this line here somewhere, and then from under here to here is the other section. If I colored the entire blackjack space there, you'd have seen that it's a different section. So that's how it works. And each section, right, which is here, each section follows after. So if I move hero, for instance, this section here is called hero. If I move that hero section and take it down, let's say I just chop it off from here and I take it to under newsletter. So where's the newsletter? This is newsletter. So if I take that section there and I dump it after newsletter, like after newsletter, now you will find the hero section after the newsletter section. I'll give it some time. So can you see it? So it just comes like down, right? Changes position from here to after the newsletter, right? So this is a newsletter, and then this is that section over here. So what we're saying is that the arrangement of this div right here controls how your page looks. So this is essentially a one scroll down page. You can call it a landing page or whatever you want, but essentially this is a page that's controlled by several sections, and each section follows themselves, right? So I said all of that to say that the correction we want to make, or where we're going to be working, is the hero section, right? So you won't be surprised when we click on the hero section over here and then begin to do our edits, right? So now, if that follows after, it means also that whatever you see on this page follows itself one by one. So you see that at the very top of all of this conversation is grow with data analytics. Now this is grow with data analytics. So, and then next to that you should see grow with data. So that's grow with data. Next to that you should see, next to that you should see fast flexible financing, and then you see the React type. So the React type is what's controlling this guy that's moving around, and then you see monitor your revenue increase, like that. Okay, well, how do you set that up? In another video we will start from the scratch. Only this time around I just want to show you something as small as how do I create a button. So this button here called get started is this one that you see here. So now my guess, if I write button here, right? And I pick that and I say show me, it automatically tells you the button is going to show before the button called get started. That's just essentially how it works, right? So whatever you write in, the order in which you write them will determine the order in which you see them, right? So that's what I wanted to show. So I said all of that to show you just that that's the hierarchy. Whatever is on top is going to always be on top, right? Whatever is at the bottom would always be at the bottom, right? So you have to understand that. But in this case, I don't want to do it that way, right? I want to put the button underneath the first button. So I'm going to chop that off and then I'll place it under. So you see that the show me will now be under the get started. So there's no reason why I don't want to do it at the top, but I just want to put it at the bottom. So I just wanted to show you that whatever comes first comes next, right? So whatever comes first on your text in your VS Code is what comes first, right? Unless you kind of like have a way, except you want to write it on a single line. So you keep that in mind. Now, so how do you do a button? Just that simple. Type button in VS Code. Sorry, my battery is going down. I just don't have time to plug it. So write button and then just select it like that. Your VS Code will give you the suggestion. Now, how do you, so we already have a button and then the button says click here. Let's do something more professional. Click here. So now you should see a button under the first button that says click here. The reason you don't see it with any styling is because there's no styling yet. So you have a button, but it has no styling. So it is the styling with Tailwind that gives us this functionality of green and all the colors that you find on it. So let's start with the styling. So how you style, you click on inside before the last bracket, and then you press spacebar, and then you say class name. Once you say class name, VS Code understands that you're trying to say class name. So it's going to show you this. Just select it, and then now you have you're beginning the process of styling your button, right? And don't forget, the first C of the class is small letter. The first letter of the name is capital letter. If you don't do that, I'll show you what happens if you don't do that in a minute. So what was the first thing we want to do with our button? First, we want to have the button with a background, right? So how you say background in Tailwind is say BG and then you put a space, right? So once you do that, it gives you a ton of options here. You can pick all kinds of these options. So you can scroll down and find whatever color makes you happy. In this case, I just want to pick rose 700. Let me show you something. The higher the number, the shinier the colors look. So if you say rose 500, it'll be a lot lighter than that. Rose 700 will give you the actual color. So let's say rose 200, so you can see the color will be a little light. It'll look like pink. Great. So, but if you say 700, then you have like the highest of its strength. Now we have a button, right? But we don't like the way the button is because the button is now too wide. We don't want that kind of button. And then it's kind of like short. We want a button that looks like a button, right? It's rounded, it has some thickness and all that. So first, let's deal with the width of the button, right? Like how wide should the button be? So in Tailwind CSS, you say width, W stands for width, and then you put a space bar. And then you put these buttons here, and then you say 200 pixels. Now, once you say 200 pixels, the button shrinks from this wide thingy, and then it shrinks down, and then it becomes a much smaller button, right? So you see that. Don't worry about where it is right now. So let me take this aside. Now, so we now have that, right? Next to that, we want some styling, like we want it to be rounded, right? So you could say rounded. Rounded alone makes it rounded, right? You don't have to say anything after the rounded. So let's just leave that as rounded so that it'll be different from the first button. For the text on the button, right? I want us to do something. I want us to see how many options of text are possible. So for that, we're going to say font and then press the space bar. It's going to give you all kinds of suggestions of what you can pick. So once you say font and then you put the space, if you scroll down, you'll find all kinds of fonts here. You'll see there's serif, there's sans, there's mono, there's thin, there's extra light, there's semi-bold, there's all kinds of stuff. For this case, let's try bold. Now watch the button. Can you see that the click here is now bolder than it was before? What if we say semi-bold? Right? So what if we say thin? Now what if we said serif? Right? So you see the font is looking like Times New Roman. So all of those properties control what the text look like, how thick it is, and all that. So, but in this case, we'll just say font medium. So it'll look pretty. Right? Now, the next bit of thing is, well, we want the button to be a little thick on the vertical space. So let's say PY3 for the thickness of the button, right? So what if we said 4? What if we said 6? So it like that's what basically controls. So what is PY? Well, padding on the y-axis. Y-axis is the standing of a man, so like up, down. X is left, right. So, but we want padding 3, right? Now, the margin of Y, this is what it does. MY 6 will put a space between the first button and the second button by a margin of 6 points. That is that is what the space is in between here, right? So let's say margin 12. So you see the space, the gap between this guy and this guy begins to widen up. You don't know that just yet until, say for instance, I make this button to be directly under this button, right? So from there, you'll see exactly what I say. What controls that? Well, the margin on the X is what controls that. So if we say margin X by 6, it's going to move 6 points forward, right? What if I said 12? It's going to move, so altogether it has moved 12 points from the last position. So the previous position was 6, so which means it has moved 18 points from the first position to where it is. But what I want to do is that I want it to be at the center of the page. So I'm just going to say margin auto. So now it will move to the center of the first one, right? So it's going to move like center. Can you see it? Sorry for the lag. So now the next bit of thing that we wanted to do is to determine what kind of text is inside the button. So, and that's very easy. All you just say is text, then you put a space. I'll advise you as a beginner to learn to read like the stuff that's inside these things. So you can say text wrap, no wrap, balance, pretty, left, center, any of those things like that. But in this case, I just want to say what kind of text color it should be, right? So there's a ton of things. So you could say, well, text should be zinc, or it should be stone, whatever. But in this case, I just want the text to be white, right? I just want the text to be white, black. So I'm just gonna say text black. So the text right on top of the button will become black. Don't worry, it's kind of like updating. That's why you don't see it, right? So essentially, that's pretty much how to do a button. In this video, I have shown you the order of objects, like with their hierarchy, right? And then in this video, I've shown you how to write a text. What if we take this a little further so you can see? So if I want to write something on top of that, so let's say, so there are basically like 3-4 things you use to write text on a document in HTML. You could use the P tag, you could use the H1, H2, H3, all the way to H6 tag. In this case, let's use the H1. H1 is header 1. And the idea is I want a big, bold font. So once you say H1 and you press enter, it's going to create that for you. That's the Visual Studio Code thingy. So in the middle of that, I'll write have fun. Or let's just make it sound professional. So our products guarantee long-term financing for you and your kids. Right? So you see that. So like I said, don't forget it's about the hierarchy, right? So this guy, because I wrote it on top of the button, that's why you see it there, right? So what we could do is, now let's do some styling. So say class name. Now, by the way, remember I told you that when you're writing class names, the first letter C has to be small, and then the second letter N of the name has to be caps. Let me show you what happens when you don't follow that rule. So if you remove this now and put a small letter N, watch what happens to our pretty button. The button just goes out flat. So that's very important. In programming, in coding, some tiny rules just have to be obeyed. So capital letter N. So just by that capital letter N that you missed, you lose all of those styling that you put in there. So in case you do something and then you're not seeing it reflect, you might want to check somewhere around. Alright, so for the text, we'll say, well, text, sorry, it's all, and then again, it has to be all small cases. So text 6XL. How do I find 6XL? Because it's one of the properties that are already set in, so you see that. But I think it's too big, so I'm just going to say text 2XL because I want one single line, right? And then I want to say font extra bold because I want a really bold font. I want it catchy, so you pick that. So, and that's pretty much how these things work, right? So now you have your page all styled. When I started out, we only had from here all the way to the button, right? Now we've created another line and then we've created a button. So that's like everything about it. I hope this has helped you. If it has, I want you to hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, turn on the notification bell, and then leave a comment down below if you want to learn something new that might be of help to you. That's pretty much it. See you in the next video. Bye.